I always thought pain would be the hardest part. But it wasn't the burn. It was the laugh that followed. My name is Lauren Grace, and this isn't a story about a family fight. It's about what happens when your pain becomes someone else's punchline, when your cries are dismissed, and your scars are called a joke. My sister, Brooke, has always known how to hurt me. But one night, during a screaming match in the laundry room, she took it further and pressed a hot iron into my side. I collapsed. My mom laughed. My dad shrugged. She's always been sensitive. But I didn't cry. I just got up and started documenting everything. What they didn't realize was that I wasn't going to scream this time. I was going to expose them slowly, publicly, and permanently. They say a home should be a place where you feel safe. Mine felt like walking on cracked glass, quiet, sharp, always one wrong step from bleeding. My sister, Brooke, was the star. Captain of her high school cheer team. Prom queen. Blue eyes that could turn cold in a second. People loved her because she sparkled, but I knew better. She didn't sparkle, she struck. I was the quiet one, not shy, just careful. I learned early that speaking too loudly meant I was talking back. That flinching when Brooke raised her hand meant I was dramatic. That crying after being shoved down the stairs meant I was seeking attention. My mom, she was too busy curating her perfect image community board, charity drives, brunches with polished smiles. She liked Brooke because Brooke looked good in family photos. And me? I was a smudge on the frame. My dad was present in body, absent in voice. He sat through dinners, nodding along, never interfering. When Brooke knocked over a plate and blamed me, he didn't ask questions. He just sighed and said, "Can't you two just get along?" The first time Brooke hurt me physically, I was 10. She slammed the door on my hand during an argument. My fingers swelled, turned purple. Mom iced them and whispered, "Don't tell your teacher. They won't understand." That became the theme of my childhood. They won't understand. As if the real danger wasn't the bruise, it was the idea that someone might see it. So I got good at hiding. Not just the bruises, but the truth. I learned how to smile when my skin stung. How to say I fell without blinking. How to clean up my own blood before anyone got home. But just because I stayed silent didn't mean I forgot. I remembered everything, every shove, every insult, every time they made me feel like I didn't belong in my own home. And on that particular night, the night with the iron, I felt it all boiling under the surface. The years of silence, the laughter that cut deeper than any wound, the fear that had turned into something else, something sharper. I didn't know it yet, but that night would become the turning point. The moment I'd stop shrinking and start preparing. Because even in a house full of smoke and silence, I was learning how to breathe fire. It started over something stupid. Laundry. I was ironing a blouse I needed for a job interview the next morning, my only clean, professional shirt. The laundry room was the one space in the house where no one ever lingered. It was quiet, forgotten, like me. I had the iron in my hand when I heard her footsteps. Heavy, fast, angry. Brooke barged in like she owned the air I was breathing. Her eyes were bloodshot wine. Maybe vodka. Maybe both. Her perfume mixed with the sourness of alcohol. She looked at me like I'd broken into her territory. "You touching my iron now?" she snapped. "It's Mom's," I said, careful not to raise my voice. "I'm just finishing up." She stepped closer. "No, it's mine, like everything else in this house." I didn't respond. I just looked back down at the shirt, tried to keep the steam from fogging my glasses. But Brooke wasn't done. "You always were a little leech," she hissed, "still trying to act like you belong here." I kept my hand steady. "I'll be done in a second." Wrong answer. In one smooth, terrifying motion, she yanked the cord, the iron jerked from my hand, and then came the heat. A searing, inhuman pain across my ribcage. She'd pressed the hot iron flat against my side. My knees hit the floor. The world shrank to heat and static and the smell of my own burning skin. I screamed. I couldn't help it. The iron clattered to the ground. Brooke just stood there smiling like she'd won something. Like it was a game and I was the weak piece that cracked first. Then came the footsteps. "Mom." She entered, saw the scene, and stopped. Me on the floor, gasping. Brooke with the cord still in her hand. "What the hell's going on?" she barked. "She started it," Brooke said smoothly, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. "She tried to hit me with the iron." I couldn't believe it. My skin was still smoking. My breath came in broken gasps. "She burned me," I managed to say. And that's when Mom laughed. Not just a chuckle, a laugh. Sharp, dry, familiar. "Oh, please," she said. "It was just a joke. You're so sensitive." I looked up at her, waiting for her to see me, to care. She didn't. She walked out. And from the hallway, Dad's voice floated in. "She's always been too sensitive." That was the moment something inside me died. Not because of the pain. Not even the betrayal. But because I realized they weren't ever going to protect me. Not from Brooke. Not from anything. So I stood up, still shaking, still blistered. And I made a decision. If no one was going to stop her, then I would. Quietly. Permanently. I didn't go to the hospital. Not because it didn't hurt God, it did. The skin on my ribs bubbled, peeled, throbbed with every breath. But I didn't go because I knew what would happen. They'd ask how it happened. And I'd say, "My sister pressed a hot iron into me during an argument." And someone, maybe the nurse, maybe the police officer on call, would look at me like I was the problem. Because that's what always happened. The last time I tried to tell someone, a school counselor, when I was 15, they called my mother in for a meeting. The next day, Brooke slammed my locker shut on my fingers and whispered, "Next time you open your mouth, I'll shut more than your hand." And the counselor? She never followed up. Just told me to try not to provoke your sister. So this time, I did what I'd been trained to do. I kept it quiet. I raided the bathroom cabinet for burn cream and gauze. I wrapped my ribs with one arm while biting into a towel to keep from screaming. The next morning, I wore a thick hoodie even though it was 85 degrees outside. Brooke gave me a knowing smirk across the kitchen. Mom sipped her coffee. Dad read the paper. No one said a word. I thought about telling someone at work. But how do you say, "My sister branded me with a household appliance and my parents laughed," without sounding insane? It's not just the bruise that people don't believe. It's the context. The quiet house, the matching outfits, the family Christmas photos. How do you explain that some people's abuse doesn't come with fists, it comes with laughter? So I swallowed the pain and did what I always did. I smiled. But this time, the smile wasn't submission. It was strategy. Because something inside me had shifted. I no longer needed them to believe me. I needed them to underestimate me. They wanted me invisible? Fine. I'd use that invisibility like a weapon. I started small. Screenshots of old text messages, the ones where Brooke called me dead weight and joked about slapping sense into me. Voice memos of Mom mocking me behind my back on the phone to her friends. Photos old and new of bruises, burns, bite marks, all dated, all stored. I built a folder, then a second one, then a backup drive, hidden inside a makeup compact. And every time they laughed, I added another file. Because if pain was all they ever gave me, I was going to turn it into evidence. Not to get revenge. To get free. It's funny they always called me weak. Emotional. Overreactive. But it takes strength to sit quietly while someone builds their own downfall and doesn't even notice. That week, I became invisible on purpose. I kept my hoodie up. I answered questions with, "Yes, ma'am," and "No, sir." I cleaned up my own dishes. I avoided eye contact. They thought I was shrinking again. But I wasn't shrinking. I was studying. At night, I sat cross-legged on the floor of my room with my laptop open and a notebook beside me. I made a timeline. Every incident I could remember, dates, locations, what was said, what was done. I dug through old email threads, text logs, even receipts. I created a digital archive, foldered by year and type. Verbal, physical, emotional, witnessed, documented. I found a string of old messages from Brooke's ex-boyfriend. He once texted me, "I'm sorry she talks to you like that. It's messed up." Boom, screenshot. Evidence. I remembered a group chat from senior year where Mom drunkenly wrote, "Lauren always cries when you raise your voice. She's like a kicked puppy." Screenshot. Evidence. I even had a voicemail from Brooke, left 2 years ago after I forgot her birthday. "If you show your face near me again, I swear I'll make you bleed." I made backups of everything on encrypted cloud storage. 3 copies. Laptop, drive, burner email. I wasn't just building a case. I was building leverage. And the more I gathered, the clearer I saw the cracks in their performance. Brooke had a public Instagram account where she posted motivational quotes about kindness and women supporting women. Underneath, I now saw a branding opportunity. And a lie waiting to be undone. Mom still sat on the local church's family values board. She gave speeches about integrity, motherhood, and the strength of a good home. I started recording audio during dinner. Nothing dramatic, just comments like, "She always brings tension to the table. If you stopped being so emotional, maybe Brooke wouldn't lash out." Cold, subtle, disqualifying. And the more they said, the more I saved. But I didn't post anything. Not yet. Because Brooke had just landed a junior marketing job at an up-and-coming wellness brand. And Mom was prepping for the annual Community Awards Gala where she was supposed to be honored as Volunteer Parent of the Year. They were climbing. And I was waiting. Because some people burn bridges. Me? I build pressure. Until the whole thing comes down in one perfect moment. I waited until Brooke felt untouchable. She just posted a selfie outside her new office high-rise glass. Perfect lighting, captioned, "Grind now, shine later." Her job at Bloom Wellness Co. was her dream, a progressive, female, forward brand that marketed emotional healing to rich women on Instagram. The irony made me laugh. I created a fake email account. Name, Amelia C. Rhodes. Occupation, lifestyle coach with 50 followers. I even made a fake website, photos of minimal interiors, vague phrases like, "Align your inner peace with outer purpose." I messaged the company directly, saying I was interested in a partnership. Requested Brooke by name. 2 days later, they replied, "We'd love to schedule a discovery session with Brooke. She's one of our rising voices in client connection." Perfect. The meeting was set for Thursday, 11 a.m., at a local cafe the company often used for off-site consults. I showed up early, dressed in beige tones, hair in a bun, a pair of borrowed designer glasses resting on my nose. A small crossbody bag held the envelope thick, heavy with truth. Brooke walked in 5 minutes late, all heels and gloss and artificial charm. She didn't recognize me. Not yet. "Amelia?" she asked, extending her hand. I shook it, smiled. "Thanks for meeting me." We talked for 5 minutes. I asked about her approach to client branding, how she integrated healing language into product messaging. She used words like synergy, authenticity, and female resilience. That was my cue. I reached into my bag, pulled out the envelope, and slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked, confused. I leaned back, met her eyes for the first time. And I saw the flicker of recognition. "Proof," I said, "of who you are when no one's filming." She opened it. Inside, screenshots of threatening texts, voicemails with her voice, angry and abusive, photos of bruises, time-stamped. A transcription of the iron incident, yes, I'd recorded the confrontation the night it happened. Brooke's hands trembled. "This is slander," she spat. "No," I said softly. "This is documentation." "You're insane." I smiled. "That's not what your company will think." She lunged forward, not enough to hit, but just enough to make the table shake. And that's when the real card dropped. At a table across the cafe sat a woman with an iPad, Bloom's executive assistant. She'd been watching the entire meeting, recording everything. I nodded toward her. Brooke turned, saw the camera, and froze. "You set me up," she whispered. "No," I replied. "I let you reveal yourself." The next morning, Bloom Wellness Co. issued a public statement. Due to new information regarding employee conduct, Brooke D. has been terminated pending an internal review. The post went viral in under an hour. Her followers dropped by the thousands. Wellness bloggers shared the story with hashtags like "fake healing" and "bruises don't lie." Screenshots leaked onto Reddit. Brands she'd pitched to pulled their emails mid-negotiation. By sunset, she'd gone from rising voice to public liability. But I wasn't finished. Because Brooke was only half the performance. The real actress was still center stage. My mother. And her moment was coming. My mother lived for appearances. Every ribbon she cut, every pie she brought to church, every quote she gave the local paper, all of it was calculated. But nothing topped the annual Community Hearts Gala. It was her red carpet. Every spring, she stood on that stage in her pressed pastel blazer, praised for her selfless parenting and contributions to family values. This year, she was receiving the Parent of the Year award. She had no idea I'd RSVP'd. No idea I'd bought a secondhand cocktail dress and walked through that door as quietly as a breeze through stained glass. The banquet hall was lit up like a wedding. Chandeliers, soft violins, small talk dressed in diamonds. I waited at the back, watched her rehearse her smile. Polished, practiced, empty. She stepped onto the stage as the host introduced her. She is the heart of our neighborhood, a pillar of motherhood, a champion of grace under pressure. Please welcome this year's honoree, Susan Grace. Applause erupted. She stood at the podium, holding her speech. Talked about nurturing children, about sacrifice, about love. Then the host interrupted. We received something anonymously this week, he said with a curious glance. A tribute for the night's theme, truth and transformation. He held up a USB. I had mailed it in unsigned, untraceable, addressed simply, for the truth you pretend to celebrate. The lights dimmed, and the screen behind her flickered to life. First, the photo of my burn. Red, raw, angry. Then, a voice, hers. She's always been such a disappointment. Whiny little thing. Then Brooke. I could break her in two, and she'd still say sorry. Gasps. Murmurs. A wine glass hit the floor and shattered. The photos kept coming, bruises, timestamps, audio files, screenshots of private texts. Laughter turned into silence. Recognition turned into horror. I watched her freeze. For the first time in my life, she had nothing to say. Her smile broke like glass underfoot. She backed away from the podium. Someone tried to help her down the stairs. She shoved them aside. I moved forward just enough for her to see me. Our eyes locked. I didn't say a word. But my face said everything. I warned you. I told you I was remembering. By the next morning, the gala's sponsors had withdrawn their support. 3 board members resigned. Church leadership issued a formal statement requesting that my mother step down to reflect on recent revelations. The woman who built a kingdom on image just watched it collapse under the weight of truth. But the collapse wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something I'd been building quietly, intentionally, and for others like me. Because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming the narrative one truth at a time. I knew they'd come for me eventually. Not with apologies. With paperwork. 3 weeks after the gala, I got served a defamation lawsuit. Filed by my mother. The woman who once laughed at my burns now claimed I'd maliciously damaged her character. It would have been laughable if it didn't make my stomach twist. But I showed up to the courthouse. Alone, calm, wearing a black suit that made me look more composed than I felt. Hair pulled back, no makeup, just evidence. They arrived 10 minutes late. Mom wore her signature pearls like they could still protect her. Brooke had oversized sunglasses on indoors, not for fashion, but to hide the shame that makeup couldn't fix. The courtroom was quiet, cold, just the shuffle of papers and the slow turning of heads when the judge entered. My mother spoke first. She's mentally unstable, Your Honor, always has been. She's fabricating stories to destroy what little family she has left. She said it so easily, like it was rehearsed. Like she hadn't called me trash behind closed doors. Brooke chimed in. She's jealous. Always has been. She's bitter that I succeeded and she didn't. The judge turned to me. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. I opened the folder, slid it forward. Inside were printed screenshots, dated medical receipts I had paid out of pocket, voice recordings, and the full transcript of Brooke threatening me. One line stood out. One more word and I'll make you regret being born. The courtroom was silent. The judge read, listened, flipped pages slowly. Then looked up, not at me, but at them. His voice was clear, steady. This isn't defamation. This is a documented pattern of abuse. What's been presented here is not an attempt to ruin reputations. It's an attempt to survive them. He dropped the file onto the desk with a dull thud. Case dismissed. Just like that. No arguments, no dramatic shouting. Just the sound of 2 people realizing the system they'd always controlled no longer belonged to them. My mother stood stiffly, lips pressed tight. Brooke turned her face away as if the air itself burned. But me? I sat still for a moment longer. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to run. Not from them. Not from their words. Not from their lies. The court didn't just give me a legal win. It gave me something my family never did: validation. And with that, I stood up, walked past them without flinching, and didn't look back. Because justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. You're free now. After the court case, I moved. Not out of fear, but because I needed air that hadn't already been poisoned. A small city, a quiet apartment, a job that didn't involve walking on eggshells. For the first time, I was choosing peace, not earning it. But I wasn't done. Because even though my mother and sister had lost everything they used to hold power, image, control, reputation, I had gained something they never truly valued: purpose. Using a grant from a domestic trauma support foundation, I launched a small nonprofit. Its name? Ashes into Armor. It wasn't flashy. Just a few rooms downtown. One therapist, 2 part-time advocates. A waiting room with soft chairs and shelves of books no one had to return. We didn't just help victims of abuse. We focused on a specific kind, the kind people rarely talk about. Abuse by sisters. Abuse by mothers. Abuse by women. The kind that hides behind polite smiles and PTA meetings. The kind that makes victims feel crazy for even naming it. We gave those survivors a space to speak. And more importantly, a space to be believed. One afternoon, I sat across from a teenage girl named Riley. She had a fresh burned scar across her shoulder from a drunken stepfather's cigarette. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She barely spoke. I didn't push. I simply unbuttoned the cuff of my shirt and showed her the faint, winding scar across my side. She stared, then whispered, "Did it hurt?" I nodded. "Yeah, but not as much as pretending it didn't." She smiled. Just a little. That night, I got a call. It was from Brooke. Her voice was brittle, like paper soaked in rain. "I lost everything," she said. "People hate me." "No," I replied, calm. "People see you now. That's the difference." She went quiet, then said, "You burned our family down." I took a breath. "No," I told her. "You did that. I just made sure people could see the smoke." And then I hung up. I didn't need closure. Because I had become something stronger than survival. I had become fireproof. And as I locked the office that night and stepped out under the streetlight, I realized something. They tried to brand me as fragile. But all they really did was temper me. And from the ashes they left behind, I built something they could never touch. Me. As I reflect on my journey, I realize this was never just about pain, it was about redemption. In the darkest moments, when my family laughed at my wounds and silence echoed louder than love, I remembered something deeper. God never laughs at our pain. He collects every tear. He sees what others pretend not to. Scripture says in Psalm 147:3, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from apologies, it comes from truth, from stepping out of the shadows and walking in the light God provides. To those in your later years, don't believe your time to heal, to help, or to speak has passed. God can still use your story, your wisdom, your scars. Whether you were the one who suffered or the one who stayed silent, grace is still available. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment sharing what this lesson means to you, or simply type Amen if you believe that truth still sets people free. Your voice still matters. So does your legacy.